Tonight on KQED Newsroom, we speak with Representative Ro Khanna about the findings of the January 6th Commission and the current gridlock in Washington. Plus, Mayor Sam Liccardo recently stepped down after 8 years leading San José. We talk with him about his legacy and lessons learned from his time in office. And we take a visit to San Francisco's iconic and beloved Ferry building. Coming to you from KQED headquarters in San Francisco, this Friday, January 6th, 2023. Hello and welcome. This is KQED Newsroom, and I'm Priya David Clemens. I hope you are having a great start to the new year. I'm happy to be back with you this wet and windy week. Let's turn now to Washington. The shocking attack on the nation's capital still feels so fresh, it's hard to believe it took place 2 years ago today. The violence carried out by members of the far right still echoes loudly. A different sort of far-right power was on display this week as a group of 20 ultraconservatives caused chaos in Washington by repeatedly refusing to vote California Congressmember Kevin McCarthy into the position of Speaker. Joining me now to discuss this is Congressmember Ro Khanna. He joins us by Skype from Washington, D.C. Congressmember, thank you for joining us, for taking a few minutes to step away from all the action.
Thank you, Priya. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everyone in the Bay Area watching.
So could you tell us a little bit about why this is such a big deal? Just to take a step back for a moment, we have all been talking all week about the gridlock in Washington and the problems with electing a speaker with this slim Republican majority. But why does the speaker position matter so much?
Well, there is no Congress. I mean, I'm technically not employed. We're all members elect. There was a 1889 statute which says that before members of Congress can be sworn in, you have to elect a Speaker of the House. And until we have a Speaker of the House, we basically don't have a functioning Congress. Congress couldn't declare war. We can't appropriate any money. So we're right now without a functional government until we get a Speaker of the House.
And it also means that the people who are newly elected into office can't be sworn in. So maybe I should be calling you Representative-elect Khanna right now.
Absolutely. I mean, none of us can be sworn in. By January 13th, the staff stops getting paid. I think members elect may stop getting paid. I don't know the details. But more important than that is that the country's work can't take place. I mean, Congress literally can't do anything. And it's unprecedented because Kevin McCarthy had 2 months after November to work this out. Any of the deals that he's doing now, I don't understand why he couldn't do those deals in November or December. The biggest concern I have is if it's so hard for him to get the votes for Speaker, imagine how hard it's going to be for him to govern. And we've got some scary votes coming up. Imagine if this country defaults on the debt ceiling and not raising it. That would cause a global recession. It would be catastrophic. So people should be concerned about our ability to govern.
What does this mean? The fact that such a slim majority of ultra-conservatives can kind of hold D.C. hostage like this?
Well, Priya, you put it exactly correctly. It's very scary. I mean, Kevin McCarthy today, in the vote I just did, is finally making some progress. He's gotten people to flip. But he's done that by basically giving away the entire barn. I mean, he is making promises to the far right about drastic cuts in spending, about potentially not raising the debt ceiling. These things will have catastrophic consequences for the working class, middle class in America, and for our own prestige as America. I mean, we've never defaulted on our credit before. And I'm really concerned about the promises that he's making to an extreme group to get votes.
This is not your first week in Washington. You've been a representative for some time. Tell us what it feels like to be there this week. Is there a strong sense of conflict, of aggression, of tension? Is there just frustration and patience through this process? What is it like?
You know, honestly, the first day there was a bit of novelty. Okay. It's never happened that someone hasn't gotten the the vote of Speaker on the first ballot for 100 years. But as we started to go into vote number 4, vote number 5, vote number 6, there's just an exasperation and a real concern and anxiousness about what deals are being made with the very far right to get their votes. I mean, that is a concern not just shared by Democrats, by many moderate Republicans.
There is some historical precedence for this happening, but it's been a long time. I mean, literally 1923, 100 years ago, is the last time there was such a delay in installing a new speaker. We've had decades of more peaceful transitions, easier transitions. Why is this issue coming up now? America has really grown and evolved in the years since then.
Well, it's grown and evolved, and it matters a lot more, America. I mean, it mattered in 1923, but this was before World War II, before we became the world's undisputed superpower. Now, when America sneezes, it affects millions of lives. I mean, we are the dominant global economy, so it really has huge consequences. I think it's happening because of the dysfunction of the Republican Party. The fact that they had 2 months and they could not come to a consensus on Speaker just shows that they are very disunited. They've got extreme elements of their party who want to blow up the institutions. That's not me talking. That's what they say. They're in Washington to try to blow up institutions. And it's a concerning time for the country.
Anything else on this topic right now, Congressmember, that you would like to share?
Well, I'm proud of our party for electing Hakeem Jeffries, first African-American to ever lead a party in the United States House of Representatives. The Democrats have shown remarkable unity. 12 out of 12 votes. He's gotten 212 votes, every single Democrat. And I think he's going to eventually be a great speaker and a great leader.
I want to turn now to the January 6th Commission. January 6th was 2 years ago today. Are you feeling reverberations of what happened then in Washington, being there again now? What is it like for you?
Well, Priya, it's a reminder of that dark day. I was locked up actually in this office for till midnight. But it also is a reminder of the triumph of democracy. I remember at 2 in the morning, walking down to the Capitol Hall, voting to certify the election with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And it gave me a sense of optimism that our democracy is very resilient, that ultimately the democratic way of life in America will prevail. So it's important every January 6th to remind ourselves of how fragile democracy is, of the threats of it, and to reaffirm our commitment to the American democratic ideal.
There's also been referrals by the January 6th Commission over to the Justice Department, and they're recommending criminal charges be brought against President Trump and others. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think President Trump will be charged?
Well, I think that's a decision for Attorney General Merrick Garland to make. I obviously have expressed strong condemnation of what he did, but it's not for politicians to opine on legal matters. Merrick Garland has impeccable integrity. It should be beyond politics, and I want him to go where the facts take him.
What do you think about the waning power of President Trump? His recently announced election bid has been underwhelming, to say the least. His support for candidates in the most recent election did not do very much. In some cases, it certainly seems to have hurt them. What do you think about this shift?
I think people are catching on that the January 6th and election denialism really are not consistent with our principles, and that has caught up to him. But, you know, you had Kevin McCarthy still groveling to Donald Trump for Trump's endorsement. So I don't think that the Republican Party has been rid of Trumpism, and it would be a mistake to underestimate Trumpism, which is why I strongly support our president, President Biden, and want to do whatever I can to strengthen his hand.
And last, I want to ask you about speculation that is out there about your future. Politico published an article last month titled "The Shadow Race is On to Succeed Feinstein," and they named you as someone who is actively exploring a bid. Are you?
I'm very happy representing Silicon Valley. I think it's one of the biggest platforms in the nation, if not the world. I mean, candidly, some people have approached me about it, but my inclination right now is really to continue to represent Silicon Valley.
Do you agree with some who say that it is time for Senator Feinstein to cede her position?
Well, I'd be shocked if she runs for re-election, and I don't think that would be appropriate. But, you know, I think it's her decision to serve out her term, and I don't think she should be pressured in not serving out her term.
Congressmember Ro Khanna, thank you for taking the time. Hope you have a quieter weekend and that this all wraps up soon.
I hope to be back home. Let's see. Let's see if we get this done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After 2 terms in office, Sam Liccardo finished his final year as mayor of San José, the 10th largest city in the country. During that time, he led the city through pension reform, new housing development, a mass shooting at the Valley Transportation Railyard, and a spike in homelessness. And Mayor Sam Liccardo joins us now. Mayor Liccardo, thank you for being here with us.
Great to be with you, Priya.
So it is January 6th. We're looking back at what happened, looking forward to what's to come with the investigations. Where were you on January 6th?
You know, I just remember getting a call from my dad saying they're storming the Capitol, and I thought he was just watching some, some crazy feed online or something. It couldn't possibly be true. I just didn't believe it. It's still hard to believe and imagine.
And then when you started to see it unfold,
yeah,
I think it hits all of us viscerally at that moment. How did it impact you, and did it influence the course of your work as a leader over the next couple of years at all?
You know, it makes us reflect on what's really important about our democracy, right? And the most hallowed of democratic institutions, the right to vote, elections, how critical that is. And, we've been working through our own challenges in South Bay and San Jose, and now are grappling with an issue relating to 200,000 residents who do not have the opportunity to vote for their council member for the next 2 years.
What happened?
Well, there was a decision by the council. They'd simply appoint somebody to represent these 2 districts. As you can imagine, if you're a resident of one of those districts, you might resent that fact. So it's important for us to remember that it's not just about folks who are charging up Capitol steps in Viking hats and clubs. I mean, those obviously are extreme examples, and it's not morally equivalent to a legal decision by a council to say, hey, we're just going to appoint your representatives instead of allowing you to vote. But it is important for all of us to recognize we have a role to protect this hallowed institution. And in institutions like City Hall, we have to take it seriously.
So here you are looking back at 8 years in office as mayor. As you think back on it, what stands out to you as a lesson in leadership that you have had to learn over the last 8 years?
I think you come into office often with a lot of ideas about what you're going to do to transform a place, to try to make for better policy, to improve the quality of life of the community. And I've been reminded more than once that the best thing you can do is stop and listen. And sometimes you learn that the hard way. But usually it's a community leader who's a little outspoken, as community leaders have to be effective. And I remember one in particular, a very outspoken woman, Maria Marcelo, who sadly we just lost, a Spanish speaker who told me in very clear terms what her community needed, and it wasn't what I assumed. And
what was the difference there?
That was an important lesson. Well, we were focused on things like, well, we want to get a park built, and we want to do these things for a community that was, traditionally overlooked in our city. And she reminded me that really it was about actually the people, that it wasn't just about building things, it was about building relationships in the community, both with police as well as having the programs for youth that she critically wanted. And that was a gut check for me. And those are the kinds of things we need as leaders, those honest conversations where someone says, hey, you might think you're trying to help us, but you're not.
Where do you think that you've been able to help San Jose in your time as mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to think our greatest contribution was in reorienting the focus of the city. We had been embroiled in a lot of battles 8 years ago over pension reform. We had more than 1,000 employees flee City Hall, including about 600 police officers. We're still licking our wounds from the Great Recession. And I'd like to believe we've moved that focus from the past to the future, really getting people to talk about how, for example, we bring BART to San Jose, which we've now started and we have to continue, how we can help a couple thousand first-generation students get on a pathway to college, how we can build an incredible campus for Google and thousands of homes in a downtown that can revitalize the downtown area. You know, those kinds of projects, preserving thousands of acres in Coyote Valley for future generations, getting our community focused on making San Jose the next great city of the United States. I think that, I believe, will be our great contribution together.
You know, let me talk to you a little bit about San Jose. San Jose is the largest city in the Bay Area. It's 1.1 million people. It's the 10th largest city in the nation. And yet somehow you all seem to skate under the radar a lot.
We do.
What is that about?
You know, we like it that way. All the attention goes to other cities, and we just do our best, and things manage to work out all right. You know, we're not an attention-grabbing group. I think, you know, we've got a lot of very diverse city, very innovative city, but I think we're all pretty focused on doing extraordinary things within, you know, obviously in the heart of Silicon Valley, we're focused on the next great creation, innovation, but it's not about it grabbing attention, and I like that about our community. It's very accessible. Unlike other communities that are perhaps a bit more hierarchical, people can come to San Jose and within a few years have a real impact in the community because we're a little more open source. We're open to everybody. I'm proud of the fact that we're a place where about 40% of our adults came from a foreign country. That's the kind of environment and community, I think, where creativity thrives and where diversity really works.
How much is the identity of San Jose wrapped up into innovation and technology, being such a representative of Silicon Valley?
Well, it is obviously really important since we're the large city in the Valley. But I would say, you know, for many years, City Hall hadn't always paid attention to the creativity of the community. And so what really focused on when I came in was creating a team of folks who would do nothing except engage outside City Hall with creative people in our community. For example, we just launched, you know, a few weeks ago an initiative working with students to create a portal to enable the public to get access to police misconduct records in ways that previously they hadn't, just relying on, you know, college students who are interested in having a contribution to the civic discourse and relying on their web skills, for example. More and more, I think we're seeing a City Hall that's responsive to and really embracing the innovation around us.
You're also coming to the beginning of a development project. After 6 years in the making, you've finally broken ground on the Google Village, Google campus downtown. You'd been part of championing having them come and break ground and create mixed-use space in downtown San Jose, in a part of San Jose that wasn't as utilized before. Tell us about what the vision is for that space, what you expect it to create for the city.
Well, you know, San Jose, we grew up in the 50s and 60s and grew very rapidly in the age of the automobile. And so we have a city that's largely built for the automobile, suburban, lots of folks stuck on freeways and expressways. And the vision for our city is really to refashion a city that was built for cars into a city built for people. And this Google project enables us to really accelerate that work. It's not just about building a typical Silicon Valley campus surrounded by a sea of parking. It's about integrating housing. In this case, Google's made huge commitments, and, you know, to their credit, build 4,000 homes. A quarter of them will be rent restricted and affordable, integrated with retail and restaurants, and of course a campus as well. And the size of it is obviously very significant. It's twice the size of the Apple World headquarters. This is really tremendous for a downtown that frankly has struggled through the decades to create vibrancy and create that core that we know a city the size of San Jose deserves.
Would you point to that as one of the key moments of your legacy of having been mayor? Would you say, you know, the gun control initiative, for example, that you've put forward and the changes that you've made there, or the pension reform, or filling out your police department? Which of these pieces do you feel like, as you look back, you think, this is really my legacy, this is where I wanted San Jose to go, and we're getting there?
You know, I can't say it's any one thing. I think it really is around creating this sense that this is a city that has for so long been on a verge of really accomplishing tremendous things collectively, and now everybody's pushing together to get there. Now, it doesn't mean we're all agreeing on everything. That certainly doesn't happen in big cities. But I feel like, for example, in this Google development, the fact that we have very diverse groups, pro-business, pro-labor, environmental groups all pushing together on this is significant. And what has resulted in, really to Google's credit again, is a tremendous amount of investment in our nonprofits, in affordable housing, and other kinds of things that will revitalize our city.
As mayor, you presided over a time when there was the deadliest mass shooting in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 2021, a gunman shot and killed 9 people at a rail yard, and then committed suicide himself. How did that impact your thinking on guns and gun control?
Well, I think like every big city mayor, we're all just struggling for answers. And there's no simple answers. There's no palliative that somehow or another prevents the next mass shooting. We've actually suffered through 3 separate incidents that are classified as mass shootings, and we frankly have had an easier time than many big cities as we look at the data, which is awful to imagine. I had been pushing forward on several initiatives to see how we could do better. And what ultimately emerged through several months of work with the community was trying to find a pathway, given all the constraints that we have, federal law, state law, et cetera, to actually be able to make gun ownership safer. In a world, in a country where we have 400 million guns, we're not going to suddenly turn back the time and turn back the tide of the proliferation of guns in our city or in our country. But we can make gun ownership safer. And so what we ultimately introduced were 2 measures. One was a gun insurance requirement. The other was a fee requirement where we could use that revenue on violence prevention. We're still in the midst of implementing those things. The insurance mandate just became effective January 1st, and the fees will be imposed in a matter of months, I suspect, as we're emerging from court battles. But what we hope is we're providing some opportunity for other cities and other states to look at this model and jump in. I get a lot of calls from other mayors saying, hey, let us know when you're done with the litigation because we want to try this too. We don't think there's any one solution. There's going to need to be a lot of solutions. But at least we have a way to make gun ownership safer, we hope.
You've called homelessness the biggest failure of San Jose. You've done some work to reduce homelessness, major attempts while you were in office. You're out now. It's on to the next. What needs to be done in San Jose going forward to address the needs of the unhoused?
The bad news is we know every big city in the Western United States is grappling with this problem, and I'm guessing it is the #1 problem in every one of those cities based on all my conversations with mayors. And nobody's figured this out yet. I think the good news is we're learning a lot, and I learn a lot with the benefit of the experience of other cities because I talk frequently with other mayors, particularly in California, and we steal each other's good ideas. And we've been building, I think, toward better solutions. One is prevention. We know it's much more cost effective and it reduces a lot of human misery if we can actually get to families before they get that notice of eviction. And so we're seeing a lot of success with prevention programs in San Jose and Oakland and other cities. Secondly, we're learning about ways to build housing much more cost effectively and faster. In 2015, we piloted programs to convert motels to housing, and did that a couple of times, and the governor since has taken that statewide and clearly has done great work with that. We're also building quick build prefabricated housing, which is what we just tried really during the middle of the pandemic. And what we discovered was rather than taking 5 or 6 years to build an apartment building at $800,000 a unit, which is what it costs right now in the Bay Area, we could do it at a fraction of that cost, maybe $100,000, and do it in a matter of months rather than years. So really being able to accelerate and scale those efforts is going to be the pathway to success. And the good news is my successor, I know Matt Mahan, is very focused on that.
Your family has a long history in California and in San Jose as well. You have now served as mayor for 8 years. What is next for former Mayor Liccardo. There's been reporting that you are hoping to run for Congress in the future.
Yeah, no big announcements now. I promised myself and my wife we'd take a few weeks to think about it. Fortunate to have some opportunities, but I really wanted to put all my focus into racing to the finish line and running through the tape. And so that's really what I've done. And I'll take some time in the next couple of weeks to really sort it out.
All right, well, we are looking forward to an announcement if that is to come in the coming weeks. You are welcome to come back and share that here on the show.
Would love to. Thanks, Priya.
Thank you so much. Mayor Sam Liccardo.
It's been great to be with you.
San Francisco's Ferry building opened in 1898 as a transportation hub for anyone arriving to the city by train. For many years, the ferry was the only way travelers and commuters could reach the East Bay and Marin. The building survived both the 1906 and 1989 earthquakes, and it's this week's look at something beautiful. Beautiful. I had no idea there was a statue of Mahatma Gandhi there. I'm going to have to go check that out. That's the end of our show for tonight. You can email us at knr@kqed.org or find KQED Newsroom online or on Twitter. You can always reach me on social media at Priya D. Clemens. Thank you for joining us. We will see you right back here next Friday night. Have a great weekend.